Let me remind y'all that Melania, the First Lady, a model, and when I say model, I'm not talking about Tyra Banks, Cindy Crawford, or Naomi Campbell level, applied for and was given an EB-1 visa. And what that stands for is an Einstein visa.
But I also want to defend Melania real quick. Not everybody could marry Donald Trump, and I think that's quite an achievement. So I think she deserves credit for that. Nobody up here could have done it.
As Trump ramps up deportation efforts, critics are now pointing to his own family's immigration history. A MoveOn.org petition titled Deport Melania, Melania's parents, and Barron in the first round of deportations garnered over 3,000 signatures. The petition argues that if Trump targets naturalized citizens, Melania and her family shouldn't get a free pass. It claims that Melania's son Barron is an anchor baby and should also be deported under Trump's harsh standards. Notably, Melania Trump was born in Slovenia and moved to the US in 1996 to pursue a modeling career. She received a green card in 2001 under the EB-1 visa, often called the Einstein visa, raising eyebrows nationwide. This because the EB-1 visa is reserved for those with extraordinary ability in science, arts, business, or athletics. Typically, this visa goes to Nobel laureates, Olympic athletes, or world-renowned experts in their fields. And therefore, critics argue that Melania's modeling career lacked the acclaim needed to qualify for such an elite immigration path. Melania became a US citizen in 2006, 1 year after marrying Donald Trump, but the questions haven't faded. Last week, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett reignited the debate during a fiery House Judiciary Committee hearing. She questioned whether Melania met the high bar required for a visa that rewards truly exceptional talent.
World that would allow 20 million people to enter their country illegally, and then when we do something about it, we then cry xenophobia. It would never happen. When I was stationed in Saudi Arabia, you had to have a diplomatic passport just to enter Saudi Arabian airspace. So the idea that we should at least speak to every single person that wants to enter our country is a novel idea because everybody else does it. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for being here. Mr. Chairman, I yield back the remainder of my time.
Gentleman yields. The chair now recognizes the gentlelady from Texas, Ms. Crockett.
Thank you so much. It's interesting that we're being accused of wanting all kinds of criminals to be on the streets, or that we don't believe that people should show up to their meetings and appointments. Last time I checked, there's a lot of people that are actually being grabbed as they are going in for their appointments. In fact, we know that one of the candidates that was recently running in this mayoral, he ended up being arrested because he decided that he was actually going to escort people that are actually showing up to their meetings. Or we know that the Pope, yes, the Pope himself, decided that the church may need to have people that are going to escort people as they're going into their meetings. Because the reality is that what they are claiming what they want to do versus what they're actually doing, the actions don't match up. And while we are supposed to be talking about visas, somehow we continue to cherry pick and talk about one criminal act and another criminal act. And it is so very interesting to me that, yes, we will say people are xenophobic, because when you start to decide that just because somebody came from another country, they are automatically some kind of criminal, that does sound kind of xenophobic to me, because you are using a paintbrush to paint an entire group of people where the vast majority of them are coming here because they are actually seeking a better life. But let me get to what this hearing is supposed to be about. The idea that Trump and my Republican colleagues want to restore integrity and security in the visa process is actually a joke. Let me be clear, integrity is not snatching lawful visa holders off the streets and throwing them into unmarked vans. Integrity is not revoking visas based on social media posts that hurt somebody's little feelings because kids decide that they want to go after Trump or this administration. We have a thing called free speech in this country. And since we're talking about integrity, I'm confused as to why my Republican colleagues aren't talking about the lack of integrity when it comes to the president's family's visas. Let me remind y'all that Melania, the First Lady, a model, and when I say model, I'm not talking about Tyra Banks, Cindy Crawford, or Naomi Campbell level, applied for and was given an EB-1 visa. And what that stands for is an Einstein visa. Now, y'all that don't know, let me tell you how you receive an Einstein visa. You're supposed to have some sort of significant achievement, like being awarded a Nobel Peace Prize or a Pulitzer, being an Olympic medalist, or having other sustained extraordinary abilities and success in sciences, arts, education, business, or athletics. Last time I checked, the First Lady had none of those accolades under her belt. It doesn't take an Einstein to see that the math ain't mathin' here. Nevertheless, what Republicans are doing with this reconciliation process, the travel bans and revoking visas, jeopardizes our national security. It threatens our communities, our higher education, and our economy. Visas like the largely vetted J visas for higher education and M visas for trade, training, attract the next innovators, medical providers, researchers, and educators that we need to build on American success. I'm not gonna mess up your name, so I'm not doing that. But I'm with you, okay? In your experience, do individuals on J or M visas typically improve or impair our economy?
They generally improve the economy, and I can give a brief example. My wife is a very successful woman. She makes a ton of money, which I'm grateful for. And the reason why we're able to do that while having 3 children is because of the au pair visa, somebody who is here on a J. Okay. Who is here and able to supply this for us. But I also want to defend Melania real quick. Not everybody could marry Donald Trump, and I think that's quite an achievement. So I think she deserves credit for that. Nobody up here could have done it.
You sure right, I couldn't do it. But anyway, in fact, J visa holders contribute $43.8 billion to the U.S. economy and support more than 300,000 jobs. And make no mistake, immigrants improve the health of U.S. citizens too. Despite the fact we already have a doctor shortage, Trump's reckless travel ban and visa overhaul are exacerbating this crisis by impairing hundreds of hospitals with foreign-trained doctors set to do their residencies here in the United States, meaning fewer people will get the help they need and more people will die. Now, let me remind you that Republicans are trying to gut Medicaid. Roughly 4.5 million people receive caregiver services through Medicaid, and most of these folks are in red states. And wouldn't you know that in 2023, Kaiser Family Foundation estimated that almost 30% of long-term care providers or home caretakers were immigrants. It's like Republicans want Americans to suffer. Now, Republicans say visas make us less secure, but let's talk about how visas given to victims of crimes like rape, murder, human trafficking, torture, abduction, kidnapping, to help law enforcement with their investigation or prosecutions of these crimes. These folks are risking their own security for broader safety of Americans and our communities. Thank you so much. I will yield.
Gentlelady yields, and our chair now recognizes himself for 5 minutes. I think it's important to realize how we got here, right? I served in Congress for 2.5 years, and one of the first hearings that we ever had, the ranking member of this committee, not this one, said that Republicans were imagining a border crisis, right? Kind of a stark commentary from the ranking member when all evidence seemed to suggest and show that there was indeed a border crisis where millions of people were pouring in illegally. And one of the concerns of that, not only from the illegal side that Mr. Knott talked about, but the legal side too. Ms. Vaughn, it seems to me that the evidence suggests that the Biden administration kind of flooded the zone a little bit, and there weren't adequate checks on the people that were going through the visa process normally. Would you agree with that?
I would agree with that. They implemented through Secretary Mayorkas a get-to-yes culture. We're instructed to minimize vetting and to approve, as a default. I'm discouraged from referring cases to fraud. They were not allowed to issue notices to appear for failed benefit applicants. So they sort of took away the consequence of filing a frivolous application by letting people who were here illegally applied for visas, and the few that were denied, nothing happened to them. And that created a huge impetus to apply for some of these visa programs that people, really wouldn't even claim to qualify for, but they knew by just filing the application, they could get a work permit and protection for deportation. And that just destroys the integrity of the system, and it makes legal applicants have to wait longer for the benefits that they deserve.
Correct, and now we're forced with figuring out whether people are categorized in the right place, right? Whether they were even lawfully allowed to get the visa that they were supposed to receive.
That's right. There have been people whose lawful status has been held back by all these frivolous applications, and people who have either received them already fraudulently, or who are on waiting lists and who have work permits who shouldn't have them at all.
When it comes to vetting, obviously the Biden administration rescinded Trump's prior executive order from his first term that kind of strengthened the visa process. But the new executive order under President Trump called for maximum vetting and ordered reviews of countries with poor screening and ergo travel suspensions, of course. Mr. Hankinson, can a restriction on a country be lifted? And how would that look? I guess when they would comply and have adequate background checks of their own citizens, that would be a reason why a country that is on that list could now be allowed into the country.
If they would take all of their citizens back when we asked them to was one factor. The overstay rate in some of these countries for Chad, it was 50%. So out of every 2 people issued a visa, 1 doesn't come back. Maybe it's time to rethink that one. If they got their house in order, if their central agencies were able to issue credible documents and verify criminal records, I would assume that they could be let back in.
Mr. Hankinson, would you agree that our foreign adversaries exploit our immigration system? And if you do agree with that, how so?
Absolutely. Well, we know that the Chinese have spied on American companies, American universities, and the American government. Obviously, it's not all of them. It's just a small percentage, but that's all you need. We know that the Russians have done the same, the Cubans. It's a very easy country to get into, or at least it has been.
Mr. Brown, does the current executive order by President Trump, do you believe that closes security gaps more effectively than the previous administration's approach?
Maybe, but I think what the Trump administration has is some wonderful statutes that you all have already passed and gives them wide latitude to enforce some of these laws. You just brought up the fact, what do we do with all those people who came in under the Biden administration through legal channels and weren't eligible? In my opinion, the Trump administration tomorrow should stand up a permanent revocation division inside USCIS and look at these applications that went through. Number 2, the other thing they can do right now is for a lot of the victims who have been personally harmed by these foreign nationals, there is an existing process in place with the Board of Immigration Appeals that allows them to appeal their I-130 petitions based on fraud. That's something they can implement right now. There's no other statute that needs to be done.
Thank you for that. Ms. Vaughn, regarding President Trump's current executive order, do you believe that if we had this in place during the Biden administration, that ICE would not have had to apprehend 11 Iranian nationals this past Sunday, one of them being a former Army sniper for the IRGC?
Well, I mean, it's hard to know, but I do believe that there would have been, the ones who came over the border are more likely to have been stopped, and the ones who came on visas are less likely to have been able to get those visas. I mean, really, since we don't have a machine that can read people's minds, the best defense against allowing people to enter who mean our country harm is to have routine, across-the-board immigration enforcement that will ensnare the threats as well as the people who are committing fraud or simply don't qualify.
I agree with you, and including a purview of their social media,
Indeed.
which would have shown, at least with the Boulder, Colorado individual,
yes.
sharing Muslim Brotherhood propaganda. With that, I see my time has expired.